Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to thank Rakuten for giving me the opportunity to speak at the conference today. Let's get the slides on. We only have 20 minutes, so we have to keep it tight. We're going to talk about blockchain. I'm sure it's a topic that is on everyone's mind these days in the world of technologies. But particularly what we're going to talk about is what's going on in Japan a little bit versus the rest of the world. Just a quick disclaimer. Sorry for having to do that. But these are just my own views. They don't represent the views of the people or organizations I've worked with, I'm currently working with, or I'll ever work with. And also, there's no investment advice here. Don't go buy Bitcoin on the back of my presentation, please. So who am I? My name is Maurizio Raffone. Sorry, my name is a little bit difficult to pronounce. British educated, studied finance in the UK, and then went on and spent 20 years at various financial institutions around the world. You see some of their names here. And then, after spending time working with other people, earlier this year I set up my own advisory company, helping fintech companies develop and implement business strategies for Japan and overseas. I've had the fortune of working in a number of cities, great cities around the world: London, Tokyo, Milan. I spent an incredible amount of time in the US, as you can hear probably from the accent, dealing with clients and asset classes over there. But the most important thing about me is I'm 100% Italian. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to have a brief description of what blockchain is. Then we're going to move on and to look at notable blockchain initiatives, both in Japan and the world. And we're going to look at those through three lenses. The first one is from a government regulatory point of view. The second one from the point of view of the big companies, the corporates, financial institutions, generally the incumbents in the industry. But also from the point of view of what I call grassroots. So the movement that's happening with individuals and startups. And then I'll have a few thoughts on what's going to happen, or what could happen to the world of blockchain going forward, both in Japan and overseas. And I believe we're going to have a Q&A session on a fireside chat just after my presentation. But what is the purpose of me standing here today to talk to you about blockchain is because I'd like for each and every one of you to have a eureka moment and figure out what and how you can use blockchain for, whether it's in your private life and your business life. Now, let's talk about blockchain a little bit. What is it really? Well, first of all, blockchain is not Bitcoin. Let's get that out of our minds. It is the most popular form of distributed ledger technology, which is simply just a way of storing data digitally. So it really works just like an operating system for computers. A set of code that regulates the way data is stored across nodes or computers. And something is also very important, that there isn't a blockchain. There are actually many different types of blockchain, like there are many types of operating systems. And the idea, and where the name comes from, is the fact that blockchain actually operates on the basis of data being held in a sequence, with new data being added onto the existing data, thus forming a chain. Some of the characteristics of blockchain are, well, listed here. First, and what you're probably very aware of, it's immutable. And I'm not going to go into the technical details of some people say, well, but you can actually change it. But for all intents and purposes, blockchain data is mutable. It's secure. The way the data is held is transparent. Everyone can access it and have a look at it. And therefore, it's very efficient. You don't go through layering of data being held by different institutions or corporates, for example, which brings the whole point about fair data ownership, which I think is a very important topic these days. Who actually owns the data? But why all the fuss? Why do we really care all that much? I think the most important point, and the one point I'd like you all to take away from the presentation, is the fact that blockchain enables the creation of a truly wholesome and complete digital ID. And that's not just for individuals. Digital ID is not just about having a passport on your iPhone app. It's actually about being able to create an ID for transactions, for data itself, which then builds into an ability to provide access to that data from all sorts of people and players, whether it's companies, it's individuals, it's startups. And that actually builds onto it and allows new transactions to take place. Something that before you had to go through different layers of intermediaries, perhaps, now can be executed directly peer-to-peer in a transparent and accessible, cost-efficient way. And that also helps create new business models, something we haven't seen before. And that's what makes me very excited about blockchain. It really starts at the core with the creation of the ID all the way up to new business models. But is blockchain a tech disruption? Well, yes and no. I'm not a technical guy per se. I come from the finance background. So what really interests me about blockchain is the fact that every chain actually has a cryptocurrency associated to it, which is really the fuel of the chain itself. The cryptocurrencies don't have any intrinsic value except for the actual use you can make of them in the ecosystem of the specific blockchain. There's no physical form. It's just a digital representation of value. And what's very interesting is supply is determined by the actual blockchain source code. There's no central authority like a central bank would determine it. And therefore, what that means is that every blockchain is actually like a small, decentralized economy, like a self-sustaining economic environment. So what that's brought about is the fact that it's enabled a high degree of usability for all stakeholders involved in working with blockchain technology. So you have the chain with the data, you have data providers, you have data users, you have the data verifiers. They're all part of an ecosystem that is incentivized through the cryptocurrency to provide data, to use it, and to verify it. So it's not just a database. Now, what's happening in Japan versus the rest of the world? So this is the world premiere of something I call the Japan Blockchain Meter, which is a very simple way of trying to benchmark Japan's initiative in blockchain versus the rest of the world. So, and for that, we're not just evaluating the current state of play, but also looking at the potential that the market has developed here in Japan for the application of blockchain. So what does the JBM look like? Well, looks like this, very simple. It goes from cold to hot. Sorry, the colors haven't come through. And a number of different ranges in between. So it's not very scientific, but I'm very happy to discuss at the fireside chat with you the results of this analysis we're going to do. So we're going to start on the government side. The government side, Japan, I think you're all aware, or you should be aware, that is actually taking a leading role in regulating cryptocurrencies, which are called virtual currencies here. We've had a legal definition of virtual currencies since April 2017. There's been a regulation on how virtual currencies can be traded through regulated exchanges. And the actual FSA, the regulator, has actually taken a very stern view on initial coin offerings here in Japan. Having said that, we actually have witnessed Japan as a large domestic market for ICOs. So we have a bit of an interesting situation. The Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry in Japan published in May 2017 its vision for financial technology development, and blockchain was a very important point. I mean, I was astounded when I read this. This is verbatim what they wrote. So Japan will develop fully digitalized financial services by promoting open APIs and leveraging blockchain technology. I love the way they say that it will develop. There's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. So that's very strong. On the other hand, we see in Europe, for example, something like the European Union early in April held its Digital Day, where 22 countries got together and wrote a really dense resolution how they want to use blockchain, which, you know, it sounds very fluffy. But they've put some money aside to work on, at the government level, on blockchain. The Commission in Europe has already invested 80 million euros, and they want to deploy a truckload more by 2020. So all in all, I'm actually looking at Japan from a regulatory and government point of view as being pretty hot in terms of blockchain development. But what's happening down the pecking order? Well, you also had the Prime Minister office that came out with its new economic policy package for 2020. It was a 3-year plan. And one of the things they mentioned was was the need to institutionalize regulatory sandboxes. So these are essentially POCs where you have the government regulators, startups, incumbents, all participating to understand how regulations need to going forward when looking at technologies that is disruptive, like blockchain. So that's all very promising. If we look at another example of a very different country like Thailand, we actually notice a burgeoning blockchain ecosystem there. It's really gone into overdrive over the last few months. There is a coordinated approach between the central bank and the SEC, which is the financial services regulator, to look at the trading of crypto assets, as well as the deployment of blockchain technology. You have banks allowed to undertake crypto businesses, and so it's all very positive, very forward-looking. You have in Tokyo here its own policy in terms of its global financial city vision, and fintech in general, but also blockchain has actually been put aside as one main area of development with an accelerator program, with a startup visa program to get talent from overseas to come to Japan. But then we compare it to Zug in Switzerland, which is called Crypto Valley. It's a place where you have more than 500 companies looking at blockchain solutions. You have the Ethereum Foundation there, the Tezos Foundation, you have Shapeshift. So these are major players in the space. And it's actually carried out the first ever blockchain-based municipal vote. Well, what's interesting is actually here in Japan, Tsukuba tried that. It wasn't a fully municipal vote. It was just a voting system on certain policies. But it's all starting to happening in Switzerland, which is also combined with a very low tax regime and very clear regulatory guidances on ICOs, all pushing for further development in blockchain. So compared to that, I think Japan is not looking as hot as before. We've gone cold, slightly colder. What are corporates and financial institutions doing? I'm sorry, I have to go quick because time is running out. So you have big incumbents like MUFG that have launched their MUFG coin, which is just being renamed recently just coin. It's a stable coin, is a sort of specific type of use case focusing on essentially payments, settlements, remittances. You have Line that has gone out and bought an exchange, is launching its own coin. They've set up an R&D center with their Line blockchain lab. You have the SBI that has taken more a venture capital type approach to blockchain with several applications, whether it's trading, mining, payments, and many more. It's a completely holistic approach. So, if you look at all, you have GMO that is partnered up with Aozora Bank to create an internet bank fueled by blockchain technology. They make that as a core component of their strategy and delivery of services. So all of that shows that, to me, there's been a great focus on finance, but not so much focus on other areas where blockchain could actually be applied. Having said that, I think the work that's being done by these organizations and many more, and by the way, I'm not going to talk about Rakuten's own efforts in blockchain since they're better, they can address that better than I can. But I think Japan is looking very strong. When we start looking at overseas, we see the diversity of blockchain uses. Singapore Airlines has now got its own mileage program on blockchain, which actually is there to promote a whole development of an ecosystem based on this digital wallet they've created. So it's not just about your air mile points, but it's also about being able to make purchases at airports and other shops associated to that. We're seeing Porsche. That is actually a POC, a smart contract-based blockchain, to combine with IoT solutions for self-driving technology, but also for monitoring things like mileage on second-hand cars in a very transparent and cost-efficient way. We're looking at a very interesting example is how Tencent is actually helping the government in Shenzhen deal with the fake invoice issues, which is a high-impact use case that I think can show exactly how government and corporates can cooperate efficiently and in a very transparent way, dealing with a very tangible problem. And then you have healthcare, which is an area that I think is prime for blockchain use cases, with two major US companies pulling together their customer data in a way to combat the issue of and wastage of paperwork associated with individual health files having to move around between different insurance companies and healthcare providers. One more example I wanted to talk about is what's happening in the shipping industry with Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, that is launching a product called TradeLens, including 94 operators, which is going to track information and documents relating to shipping items worldwide, including custom release forms, commercial invoices, bills of lading. These are all areas where there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of intermediaries, a lot of inefficiencies, and blockchain is coming in and creating a simple, transparent work stream. So having said that, I think what the world is showing Japan to some extent, and there's a lot more to blockchain than just payments and financial products. At the grassroots level, we're seeing many startups in Japan active in the fintech ecosystem. Very happy to say that, since that's what I do as a business. This is an example of some of the many companies in Japan looking and developing financial technology. But if we look more closely in terms of blockchain-based projects, there's not a lot of them. And they tend to be around the virtual currency exchange platforms. What's going on at the events level? Tokyo is actually a leading destination for blockchain conferences. There's just so many of them. But what they're really trying to do, I think, is to try to tap into retail investors' interest in ICOs generally. I haven't seen a lot of the educational side being promoted, or not as much. But there's a number of think tanks, self-regulatory organizations. There was the announcement literally a couple of days ago by the FSA that is promoted the Japan Virtual Currency Exchange Association to be a self-regulatory body. But you have many more. You have the Japan Blockchain Association, the FinTech Association of Japan, all grassroots movements from companies, individuals involved in this space, promoting the development of better technology, more transparent technology. The number of accelerator programs. There's the Blockchain Business Camp here in Tokyo run by TMG. There's the Entity Data Open Innovation Accelerator that accepts a high proportion of blockchain companies. So I see that as all very positive, very promising, with good momentum. So I think overall, since we're running out of time, I need to get to the point here. I think overall my assessment is that Japan has a tepid status in their blockchain application development. I think what's more important than that is actually we're moving towards the hot area. I think there are certain areas like financial services where Japan is moving faster than probably a lot of other jurisdictions. But we do need the whole industry to be applied in other verticals, not just finance. So what's next for blockchain? Well, first and foremost, one of the biggest issues with blockchain is the trilemma. The fact that you may have decentralized blockchain, you may have a secure blockchain, but it may not be particularly scalable. One point in case is Bitcoin, which is highly decentralized. It's got very strong security. However, it's got a 7 transactions per second capacity limit. The Visa credit card network runs on thousands of transactions per second. So you can see how it's very difficult to apply certain types of business models using the current state of the technology. There's a number of things happening to try to address this issue, like the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, a number of different protocols, blockchain protocols being developed. But essentially, this is the big one that needs to be solved. You can't really have all the 3 pieces that you need of the puzzle right away. But I think some of the Japan's challenges, we don't have any native blockchain infrastructure leader. There's no Japan-based coin in the top 50. We need to see more academia and corporates and government come together on the infrastructure development, particularly with the fact, with looking at what I was saying before, is digital ID as an enabler. We need to have that being taken by the whole industry to be able to start creating verticals of value in several different cases. And we need to work on the last mile, commercializing the POCs, trying to get it out to people, not just keeping them in the lab. And I think what's very exciting about blockchain is that it really is at the core of the technology revolution. It's not by itself a solution, but I think when you combine it with AI, you combine it with IoT, cloud computing, mobile devices, you can see really the power of the technology come to the fore. And what we need for that? Well, we need regulatory support, continued investment, and collaboration. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate speaking with you, and have a great day.